What's going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, everyone? I'm Harry Potvin, and welcome back for another episode of the H Panel, the show where we bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk mental health. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by competitive swimmer Kyle Sockwell. Kyle was a swimmer at Arizona State University, serving as the captain in 2015 and leading them to their best placement at the Pac-12 championships in years. Specializing in the 200, 400 IM, 200 breast, and 200 backstroke, he was a U.S. Winter National finalist for the 400 IM in 2016 and also achieved qualification for the NCAA B-Time standard. Currently, he has a healthy Twitter and Instagram following and is a digital strategist at the marketing agency Heart of the Sun, which is founded in 2016 and located in Austin, Texas. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, your swimming background, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Austin, Texas. I've been swimming since I was about 4 years old, so pretty much call it my whole life. I think I first hit the water when I was 1, but first race was when I was 4. My parents convinced me to swim across the pool for a pack of Pokemon cards. I still think that pack of Pokemon cards had a Charizard in it, which I think could probably go for a couple $100. So paid a couple $100 when I was 4, swimming my first race. Then didn't look back. Swam all the way through college. Swam at Arizona State, and then I'm still pretty connected into the swimming world and looking to get back into it after the whole lockdown is lifted and finally stick my foot back in the water for Masters.
Oh yeah, you're gonna race again?
I think so. I've been kicking around the idea for a few years.
Yeah.
And just kind of been back in the pool here and there. I took about a year and a half off, just straight out of the water. Then got back in at a Gold's Gym and swam at 25 and just got right out. It was a shock to the system for sure. Because before that, my last race, I went a best time at the 50, 100, 150, and 200 of my 200 breast at Pac-12s. And then after that, just went cold turkey, didn't swim. And then finally got back in, did a 25. I think it was fly. I just felt like going for it. Jumped in, did a 25 fly, hopped right out, and was just disgusted with the sport. Took some more time off. And then I think what really got me back into it was just swimming outside. So I haven't really committed yet, but I think I'm going to do it.
You're gonna get back into like the 400 IM and
No, I don't think so. I loved that race when I was swimming, especially in training. There was just something about it, just like that warm body feeling and the pain of a 400 IM was just really attractive to me for some reason. Now I think that I've had time to come back down to being level-headed again, and not just being a psycho athlete. I'd probably swim like the 50 and 100 breast,
nice.
And then maybe the 50 free. No 400 IM in my future.
Yeah, all the fun stuff. So you were a freshman at George Mason University in 2012-2013, and then you transferred to Arizona State University and kind of just finished your college time there, I guess. As a sophomore, you placed 17th in the 200 breast at the 2014 Pac-12 championships with your 158.95, which is very fast, by the way. Congratulations. So I guess my question for you was, what made you transfer universities?
Yes, it's a good question. So I mean, coming out of high school, I was decent. I wouldn't say I was anything special for sure. And so I took a few trips. I think I went to Southern Methodist, Texas Christian, both, just a few hours from me here in Dallas. I think it's like 3 hours. And then I took a trip to Texas A&M and then George Mason as well. Really love George Mason, the program out there. Peter Ward really does a great job, great facilities. And I love the team. So I really liked everything about it. The fit just didn't feel right for me. And I was lucky enough to swim really well my freshman year. And I dropped like 8 seconds in the 400 IM and then another 4 in the 200 breast, and then had a good 200 IM and a couple good relay swims as well. So I had the option to look around and maybe go somewhere else. And I really ended up chalking it up to just not really enjoying the cold because it's in Virginia. It's real cold.
Oh yeah.
Not fake Texas cold. It'll get cold here. It'll be like low 30s, maybe high 20s, like one day out of the year. So I just wanted to look around, made the decision. It wasn't an easy one, but waited to say anything or even mention anything about it until after the conference championships, which looking back, I think was a great decision. I didn't want to distract anybody or distract myself from having a good conference championships. Made the decision, talked to my coaches, and then went on, I think like 4 trips and 2 weekends. So I had like a during the week trip at Virginia Tech, I think it was, went to Arizona State. And really, once I left ASU, I knew that was probably going to be my new home.
Yeah.
Tempe's awesome. The coaching staff out there was great. We actually, Dorsey Tierney Walker was coaching us at the time before Bob came in. And, it was just a cool spot. I still try and go back there as much as I can. There's a thing with Tempe in Arizona where you just kind of get locked in to living there. There's just a huge crew. A great core of former swimmers, former ASU swimmers that are just stuck out there, which makes it really fun for me to go back out there and visit. So it's almost like I'm, in college, but all of them have real jobs now. We can go to real dinner and go to Topgolf or something like that, and not have to pool our cash together. So I ended up going out there, and it was just awesome. The facilities are incredible, the coaching staff, and you really just had every opportunity to succeed. And then Bob did end up coming in, I think my junior year, probably best coach I've ever had. He just had a really different approach to the sport and just thought about it a lot more in depth than I really even thought was possible. Still brutal. He would beat us up. Had a great time out there. Ended up tearing some stuff up in my shoulder and redshirting my junior year and then foregoing my senior year. So I really only, I think, finished 3.25 years of my eligibility. Mm-hmm. So I could have come back for one more year and then just kind of had to make the tough decision of, is going 2 seconds faster or 3 seconds faster in the 400 IM, worth having to get shoulder surgery and, changing the way I sleep every day for the rest of my life, or, the stuff that I'll be able to do, in the gym just to stay in shape. It could change the entire trajectory of my fitness for the rest of my life, or I could go a couple seconds faster. Looking back, don't regret it at all. Just moved straight into my career, came right back down to Austin, and then, I still try and get back out there as much as I can.
You already mentioned, Bob Bowman came in as your coach in 2015, I believe. Was it cool to know that your coach was the Bob Bowman? And for people who are viewing that don't know, but you should if you're a swimmer, Bob Bowman is, he's known as being Michael Phelps' coach and also the USA's Olympic team coach for 2016. So
yeah, it was interesting. Transitioning head coaches is always strange. Luckily, we had Dan Kessler, who was our interim head coach, and one of the most personable guys that I've ever met in my entire life. He's down at Florida State now, and I'm sure just crushing it, and he's going to end up having just a really killer career wherever he ends up. So he kind of helped us transition into whoever the new coach was going to be. None of us knew. They did a great job keeping it a secret from us, unfortunately. We were all trying to figure it out. So we were all kind of sitting around. I think we were at the clubhouse at one of the golf courses in Tempe, and I think we just kind of saw him. He just walked in, and it was an interesting moment. I grew up swimming in Austin, so I had raced Ian Crocker. I bumped into Aaron Pierce on the pool deck before, so it wasn't anything different than seeing a prominent figure in swimming on the pool deck. But it was a little different. I'll say it wasn't different, but it was because he was. I grew up in the 2008 era when I was 11. I think don't quote me on that, but I think I was 11 when Phelps won the 8 golds in Beijing. That was a huge moment in my swimming career, massively motivating.
Oh yeah.
And then everyone looked up to Phelps. Everybody looked up to Phelps and Bob. And it was kind of in that moment. It took me a second to realize that, he's going to coach me now. And then I realized that I was a 400 IMer, 200 IMer. And I was like, he's really going to coach me now. And then, from there, just kind of, just happened real fast. We were in the pool. He was coaching us, and it took him a minute to transition as well. Because his group was, like Chase Kalish, Allison Schmidt, um, Michael Phelps, obviously.
Yeah.
And just a bunch of, just the top of the sport. And, we felt like we were pretty good. We were swimming D1 in the Pac-12 conference. Our team was kind of in a rebuilding phase. And so it took, the team and Bob, a little while to adjust. But, over time, that relationship really formed into something that's turned into, ASU's team now is really building. And it's an exciting thing to watch, especially from, the team that was there when Bob got hired, getting to watch them grow into the team that they're becoming now, where unfortunately they had to forego the NCAA championships this year. But they were set up to really go off. Had a great Pac-12 championship. Unfortunately, just missed out on, being a couple spots higher. It was insanely close between 2, 3, and 4, I think. And just putting up that amount of points at Pac-12 is massive.
Yeah.
So in the short time that he's been there, it's been incredible. But yeah, getting coached by him was pretty surreal for a while, but you kind of move into it pretty quickly when he's writing sets and then just beating you up every day.
Yeah. Now we're just going to get right into kind of the topic of everything. So stress and pre-race anxiety. So I've got a couple Instagram questions from some viewers that wanted to know some things. And I guess a good way to kind of just start this whole discussion would be this one question I got where they asked, what are some healthy ways that you personally have dealt with anxiety or stress before a race?
So there's just kind of that whole mental component of racing, or really athletics in general, where you have to find out what works for you. Before I say anything, I don't want anyone to feel like, this is the cookie cutter strategy to not being anxious before a race.
Right.
Everybody gets anxious before a race. I'd be lying if I said that I was less anxious than Phelps was before, winning his 8th gold. That's just a different level of stress.
Yeah.
The amount of stressors going on in that environment with that many people, knowing that many people are watching you, being live streamed, just the magnitude of the moment. I can't even hold a light to that. And that's something I'm totally comfortable saying. But, still stepping up behind the blocks, in a 400 IM. One that I always think back to is the ASU U of A dual meet. It was a big rivalry probably 10, 15 years ago. And really, started to slow down because U of A just got way, way better than us. Mm-hmm. And then, in my last year there was when we beat them for the first time in I think 15 years. The stands were completely packed at Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. Phelps was swimming in the breaks with Allison Schmidt and David Nolan and a bunch of other pros. People were up in the parking decks, leaning over the parking garage to watch the event. And I was stepping up for a 400 IM, and I actually super sick the week before. There was something like respiratory going on. And my throat was closing up, but I was all swollen and I couldn't really breathe, so I couldn't really train. And so, I was stepping up for a 400 IM before that. Sheesh. It's funny, in the sport, you kind of shift as you progress. When you're 12 years old, stepping up for a 400 IM, your thought process is I don't know if I'm going to, what if I don't finish?
Yeah.
That's going to be embarrassing if I don't finish. And I remember thinking that, and then up to 16, 17, as I progressed, and I was at junior nationals. I remember I had a final at IUPUI, and I think I was in the B final. Took it out way too fast in the morning. I'm not a good flyer, so I like to go out pretty smooth and actually kind of lay back and then just run people down. And so at night he was like, "Don't take it out so fast." And so I was like, "Okay, take it out smooth." And then my pre-race anxiety before that was, what if I'm just too far behind everyone? And it ended up happening. I ended up being 3 body lengths behind the rest of the field going into the 100. And I remember thinking during that race, man, this is embarrassing. And so you kind of go from, am I going to be able to finish this race? The different stressors and things that are going on in your head. It's am I going to miss my turn? Or, am I going to false start or something like that? But, as I progressed, that am I going to finish the race turned into, am I going to swim this right? Is my coach going to be, disappointed in the way that I swam it again, like I was this morning? And there's an aspect to that makes, you better. I'm sure Phelps was thinking, about things that Bob had told him. And then, as I got older, and then in that race, I was thinking, man, I really don't want to let my teammates down, like a dual meet. And then I remember thinking, like, at the U of A ASU dual meet, I was like, man, I don't want to let, like, the school down. And then you escalate that even further. I touched on it earlier with Phelps. It's like, man, I don't want to let, like, my country down. Or I don't want to let, even more than that, I don't want to let, like, the entire world down who's watching me right now try and do something that no one's ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
So, the level of stresses and the things that you stress about change, throughout your career. And the main thing for me was just coming back into the moment and realizing, at the end of the day, it's a race. No one else remembers the time that I went when I was 17 at junior nationals, aside from me. As an individual swimmer, we're so data driven. It's easy to get lost in, the hundreds of seconds, the places that you got when you were 12, 16, 14, whatever. But realizing that, this is your race, you're in control of it no matter what, which is a great thing about swimming is, you're in your lane and no one else is in your lane, hopefully.
Yeah.
But realizing that, in that moment, you're doing it for fun. Unless you're a professional athlete and you're doing it for your livelihood, that's a different component as well. But the thing that really helped me, going into the end of my career was just remembering to have fun with it. Getting into the mindset that I like to get into before the race. Just remembering that, this is your race, have fun with it. If you're not having fun, maybe we should reevaluate what we're doing. And just trying to stay in the moment. And, also strategizing and being prepared. There's nothing that helps get rid of stress and anxiety better than being fully prepared for something.
Right. That's one thing, right? Like focusing, it's hard in swimming to not focus on the times because they're always in your face and they're always there. Like even for me, like I used to swim the 200 breast. I remember always focusing on times and like everything like that. So I'd be like, oh man, a week ago I was so slow. There's no way I'm going to do well here. Or, I'm not feeling good. Like this race is going to suck. But then my best 200 breast ever was at like our big university, like provincial meet. I remember being behind the blocks and I thought, screw it. Let's just see what happens. And that's when I swam the best because you're not like stressed or focused on time or anything. That was a real problem for me, like all through swimming. I was focused on time, like just times. That's it, as opposed to like preparation or anything.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I remember one of my biggest regrets in swimming is not just really opening it up and going for a 400 IM, especially short course. Mm-hmm. I always got into that mindset of, and it's so easy to pigeonhole yourself in a sport and say, I'm bad at this, especially as an IMer. I'm bad at this, so I'm going to do this instead. And when you really get up to the peak of the sport, especially in IM, you can't be bad at anything.
Yeah.
You can just be really, really good at one thing. If you take like a Chase Kalish, great flyer, great backstroke. He's done some ridiculous things in the ASU pool. When you think about it, he's still a breaststroke dominant IMer, but at the same time, all four of his strokes, he probably qualify for NCAAs in the 200. And the majority of the 400 IMers, you take a Josh Pernot or a Will Lacone as well, it's the same way. They're going to be elite in something, like Phelps was in the 200 fly. But I remember people talking about how Phelps could make the Olympics in the 200 back, but he just didn't want to. And I don't doubt it. He was pretty good 200 breaststroker too. He was like 211, I think.
Yeah,
if you're pushing the 210 mark, you're good.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest regrets in that race in particular, is just not really opening it up and going out 50 point in the 400 IM and just seeing what happened.
Yeah.
Because I think my best time in the 100 fly was in the 400 IM. It was like a 52 or something, or a 51. And so I didn't really know what I could go in a 100 fly. So yeah, I totally agree with you on the fact that, sometimes your best races are going to be when you're just out there racing. And you don't think about swimming the perfect race in terms of splits and, going exactly what you wrote down on paper, but instead just realizing that the races you get from here to there faster than they do by doing it in a specific way and then doing it again as many times as you need to until the race is over. Really breaking it down to its basic self is hard to do when you're all the way up at that point in your career. But doing that is also so valuable when you're looking at, especially a complex race like a 400 IM. You should have that muscle memory. You should know just 4 laps of fly, 4 laps of back, 4 laps of breast. And then if you really break it down, you just get in there and go for it. I really wish I had done that one time and just died on the freestyle and had to have somebody, some lifeguard dive in and pull me out of the pool. Because that'd be a lot more of a story to tell now than saying like, yep, I, probably could have gone a little faster, kicked a little harder, but I finished,
Yeah.
So, just go for it. I just wish I had stood behind the blocks, just gone for it. If anyone's listening to this that's, thinking about, pre-race anxiety and all of that stuff, just go for it. Trust your training, work hard in training, and then just go.
My dad had this saying where he's like, no one's ever died in competitive swimming, so you're not going to be the first one.
Yeah, it's always funny to see like the photos and stuff of like lifeguards at, Olympic trials. And I'm like, I kind of get it. I wish I had that lifeguard sitting up on the edge of their seat like, ooh, that guy went out way too fast.
Yeah.
It's Kyle. He's not a flyer, because they would know that.
They've got their spreadsheet.
Yeah, because they know what my goal times were at the 100.
So this person asked, what is the importance of speaking up to your teammates and coaches about, your stress and your anxiety before a race? And what are some other options you can seek out if you're not comfortable with talking about this with your coaches or teammates?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's hard, especially, I keep saying this, but the later you get in your career, it's harder to, talk to your teammates about stuff like that. But you got to realize, especially when you're like a freshman in high school or a freshman in college, you've never done any of it. You're writing your own book. As you move into your professional career, books and mentors are incredibly valuable because they've made all of your mistakes already. As a senior on the team, a freshman came up to me and, was saying like, I'm really nervous that I'm not going to do well at this first dual meet. I'd be like, no one cares.
Yeah, no, literally.
Just get in and swim. Because, as a freshman, unless you're like a number 2 recruit, no one cares. Everyone's expecting you to do bad. You're coming out of high school, going into college, you're in a new environment, you're away from your parents, you're probably eating like garbage. And then now you're lifting weights, your body's broken down in a way it's never been before. It's just one example. As a captain of the team, if a freshman had come up to me and said, I'm nervous that I'm not gonna swim as well as you guys expect me to, I'm gonna be like, no one expects you to do anything, especially at the beginning of your career, and then all the way towards the end of your career. It's the same thing. It definitely gets harder to talk to your equal, if you will, but like another senior or a coach. There's so much value to getting it out in the open. Instead of standing there behind the blocks for, before 100 fly, just internalizing all of this and then, being twitchy on the block or overthinking a race. I think one time I got super stressed before a race, and then it was before 100 breasts. I dove in and just started dolphin kicking. I did like 8 dolphin. I didn't end up getting DQ'd somehow, but I did like 8 dolphin kicks into a pullout. There's so much going through your head, even behind the block, that not getting it out there, if there's a ton of it circulating in your head, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in the race, especially in practice. Swimming is such a boring sport.
Yeah.
It is monotonous. And anybody that tries to tell you it's not is either lying or strangely obsessed with the sport.
Yeah.
It's boring. You're not talking to anybody. You're in your own head all the time. It's so easy to overthink a ton of stuff. Even in track, which is probably the closest equivalent to swimming in terms of sports, you're able to talk to people. You're getting feedback from your coaches. You're getting feedback from the track. You can kind of get it from the water in swimming, but there's other stimulus. In swimming, you can kind of hear the crowd, but maybe on breaststroke, because enough water is going to drain out of your cap that you might be able to hear somebody like hollering at you.
Yeah.
But you're locked into your own world. So bringing somebody else into your world and kind of talking to them about maybe why you're not feeling up to 100% in practice, or why you're not just feeling motivated, or things that you can do in a workout to get more out of it when you're just kind of going through the motions is huge, because then you've invited that other person into your head down in a pool world, and it's not just you anymore. And it really never is. And that's important to realize as well is, especially when you're on a college or a high school team, it's not just you, especially when you go up to like the, Pac-12s or like a conference championship or a state meet. It's really easy during the course of a season to get locked into your goal times that you want to hit. And that's okay in high school. You've got goals. You want to go into college. I mean, that's totally fine. You should be looking at that, and you should be trying to figure out what times you have to go to get to your, dream school. But I mean, as you get towards those championship meets, some of that stuff starts to fade away a little bit, especially when you're in the moment of a race. You start thinking about how, if I go a little bit faster here and get my hand on the wall, it's a 6-point swing for my team. And I've never felt that more than that ASU U of A dual meet. I've never felt the need to go fast fade away, or the need to look up at the scoreboard fade away more than at that meet. I still remember looking up at the board after the first relay. I think we went 1-2, and I don't even think I looked at the times. Yeah. I looked at the school names and then just straight over to the places and just bypassed all of that other data, which as a swimmer is strange. Mm-hmm. And getting yourself back into that is huge. But realizing that that's going to happen during the season is huge as you stick your head down in the pool every single day, realizing that there's a bunch of other people around you.
This is another question that I was asked, but they asked, how does individual sports stress differ from team sports stress? Recognizing that you're there for the team as opposed to for yourself definitely helps with any stress that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great question. I played baseball for the majority of my life up until I decided to just go for swimming. And I mean, I loved baseball. Still love it. Would love to play, rec softball or even rec baseball once we're allowed to go outside again. And I mean, it's definitely different. And the main difference isn't that there's not, as much of a team aspect. It's really just that there's not as much of an effect on your specific performance based on your team. And that's a hard one to differentiate, especially growing up playing baseball and swimming. Just because in baseball, I mean, if the pitcher throws a bad pitch, it's just looped out over the plate, that can change the entire course of that game. It can change the entire course of your season and, potentially your career. In swimming, I mean, yeah, the guy next to you can go faster, but that still doesn't affect you. Phelps can go 403 in the 400 iron long course, and somebody next to him could have gone 402. It just could have happened. He was just better. In baseball and soccer, somebody could be in the right place at the right time and change the game. Swimming and track, it's just different. Somebody posted an article or something about this the other day with how, it's not often in swimming, real Texan, that you're surprised by the outcome. And actually, one of my coaches when I was at ASU, Misty Hyman, was one of those races where, it kind of brought you back into reality with, if Caleb Dressel's on the blocks at NCAAs before a 50 freestyle, or if Katie Ledecky's hopping on the blocks before an 800 freestyle at the Olympics, there's not a lot of doubt surrounding who's going to win the race unless they get DQ'd. Katie Ledecky's going to win by 10 seconds and maybe even break 8 minutes. Russell might go 16, who knows? But it's one of those sports where, there's not a lot of surprise. And, in baseball and in soccer, I mean, right place, right time, it's completely different. But I mean, like you said, as you get older, the team aspect really starts to come out, especially towards the end of the season. And then at the end of the day, it is a team sport. Even at the Olympics, it's a team sport. You've got relays. Phelps didn't just win 8 gold on his own. He had relay teams and guys swimming in prelims that let him rest, and they helped him get to 8 golds, and so did Bob, and so did all the people around him. And, even outside of just your teammates, you've got coaches, you've got staff, you've got massage therapists, physical therapists, strength and conditioning coaches. They differ a lot, but coming back to my original point, most of the difference is just in terms of how can the other team affect your performance. And in swimming, really the only thing that could happen is getting hit in the face by someone in the other lane, or their waves pushing you back a little bit. The magnitude of their effect on your performance is so much less in swimming than it would be in football or soccer or baseball.
Final viewer question here is, how do you find a balance between being too hyped and not hyped enough?
It's a great one. I was so bad at that. I was a too hyped guy, and it was just kind of the mindset I got into before races, and I was just dumb because I was a 400 IMer. I probably should have been listening to classical music because a 50 freestyle, you don't want to be too twitchy, but you got to be twitchy. It's it's a tough balance, and there's not a perfect answer for that question. But I mean, I was always overhyped. I think it was a part of the fact that I was just like trying to psych myself out of the fact that I was about to do a 400 IM and go through a lot of hurt. If you do it right, you're gonna be hurting. And looking back, I probably would have dialed back the music a little bit. It has a huge effect on your headspace going into that race, and I probably should have just listened to something a little bit smoother. For 100 breast, maybe a little bit different. But in my opinion, the longer the race, the slower the BPM. The longer the race, the less caffeine. So it's a really hard balance to find. Best thing you can do is experiment with it. That's why you have in-season meets. That's why you have December if you're a college athlete. That's why you have those invitationals. So you can do a trial run. And even in practice, if you're doing suited races in practice, treat it like it's a race. Get into that headspace. If you want to throw headphones on, your coach isn't going to stop you. Tell them you want to do a trial run after practice and really get into it and throw on a suit. So that way you're more prepared for that race at the end of the season. And then that preparation takes away all that stress that we've been talking about, all that pre-race anxiety. Then you're more prepared. I think Phelps listened to Lil Wayne in his headphones before his races. And that's like a solid, smooth tune. And it's not all music. A lot of it is the stuff around you, and self-talk is huge too. But yeah, for me, the shorter the race, the more aggressive the self-talk, the more aggressive the music. The longer the race, the more strategic the self-talk, and the smoother the music, if any at all. To me, in a mile, you're thinking strategy. It's probably one of the only races where I would pull back on my statement about just getting in and racing. You shouldn't just get in and race in a mile. You got to know yourself. You got to be looking at your coaches, and you got to know where you're at. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
The mile is brutal.
Yeah. I think I swam it twice.
Yeah, me too. And then back to, getting too hyped. I was also a too hyped guy. Age group swimming, high school and stuff, I was 50 breast, 100 breast. But then when I got here, my coach was like, no, you're a 200 breaststroker. So I would go behind the blocks and prepare for a 50 breast for the 200. I was always way too stiff. And after the first 100, I locked right up. So that was a learning curve, to say the least. I would be air punching behind the blocks, listening to heavy metal.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find that balance. But when you start to, like we've been talking about the entire time, it helps you with that pre-race anxiety. It helps you get into that headspace, and helps you kind of block out all the other stressors that are going on.
Yeah, so those are the viewer questions. So now, before we kind of wrap things up here, I've got a couple fire questions for you, all regarding swimming, because I follow you on Twitter, and you have all these hot takes and stuff, so I figured it was appropriate.
I try.
So my first one, yards, long course or short course?
Short course, any day of the week. Getting me to swim long course was like pulling teeth, but I'd hop in a short course pool right now if I could.
Who or which event is going to be the biggest surprise in Tokyo next year?
200 breast for the men, I think, especially for the U.S. Olympic team. I have no idea who's going to make it. And it's kind of cool because a lot of them are my friends now. But yeah, anybody could go in that race.
Yeah, there's a lot of 200 breaststrokers for the U.S. for men.
And that final is just going to be insane. It's going to be a whole slew of 206s and 207s, which are times that, people didn't go before.
Oh, I know.
We could see 9 guys going 207 or 10 guys going 207 just because the world's so deep, and the U.S. has 5 of them, 6 of them now. That race is going to be insane. I think it's super underrated.
Has anyone broken 206 yet?
No one's broken 206, I don't think. I think it's a 206.0 or 206.1. I think it was a Russian dude.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. It feels like it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think it's just because I've been locked inside for a month.
206.0 is still so gross.
It's insane. And he wears a gold chain, too.
I love it. 4x1 free gold for U.S. again next Olympics? We'll do men and women.
That's tough. I think women, yes. We've got so many up-and-coming women, just studs. Regan Smith is insane. Men, that one's tough. I'm super biased, but I'm going to say yes solely because of Caleb Gressel. I just think he could go 46.3 on a leadoff or something like that.
Yeah.
And just, good luck. If you have 3 guys go 47 after that, which we have, catching that relay is going to be brutal. So yeah, I'd say yes on both accounts, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them went down.
There's just so many fast 100 freestylers now. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's insane. Everybody goes 47 for the men, and everybody's going 53, 52 for the women.
How many seconds does Katie Ledecky win in the 800 by?
I think it's going to be less than usual. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and how people are training and all of that, but the world's been catching up to her a little bit. She's still going to win by a ridiculous margin. I think she's going to go 8-0. You say 800?
Yeah.
I think she'll still win by a good 6-7 seconds.
And then finally, you've brought this up a lot on social media, but hardest event in the swim meet schedule.
Hardest event in the swim meet schedule. Long course or short course?
Let's do both. So short course first.
Short course, I'm going to say 400 IM, just because of oxygen debt, and that breaststroke going into freestyle is an evil transition. Long course, I'm going to stick with 200 breaststroke, just because I don't think forearms are meant to go through that kind of torture.
No.
And that last 50, especially on tapered, is just evil. Close second and third, 200 back and 200 fly.
Yeah, 200 fly long course is a monster.
Yeah, it just depends on which part of the body you want to say, matters more. 200 back, your legs are gone.
Yeah.
200 fly, your shoulders are toast, especially if you're bad at fly like me. But breaststroke, forearm and bicep cramps from just that repeated motion for that period of time is just evil. I moved the 400 IM out of there, long course, just because, if you're a really good swimmer, which I never thought I was actually a good swimmer. I thought I was just good at turns and walls. It was just a little bit more explosive. You can swim well on top of the water. It was so hard for me because I was fighting the water the entire time. But if you watch Phelps in a 400 IM, when he goes that 403, it was like he was swimming through butter, melted butter. He was just flying through it. Yeah, it was like he's on a magic carpet or something. And so, I think if you're a really good swimmer, the 400 IM long course can be a little bit easier than the oxygen debt that comes with a 400 IM short course. But I don't know. It's a tough question. I still go back and forth on it all the time. When I was swimming, I probably had a different answer than I do now. Anything over 100 for me now is the hardest race in swimming.
And I know, in your comments and stuff, everyone gets so offended. They're like, "Oh, no way! This race is the hardest one."
Yeah. It's fun to throw stuff like that out there and make people make an opinion in a sport where, if you were going to say who's the most exciting swimmer to watch in Tokyo for the men, it'd be Caleb Dressel.
Oh yeah.
Who's going to win the most golds for the women or be the most dominant women's swimmer? It's going to be Katie Ledecky. It's a very A and B, black and white sport. So making people make an opinion on stuff is always fun.
So that's all I've got. So Kyle, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of the H Panel.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Before we go, I usually give my guests a 30-second little shameless plug for anything that they're doing, anything they've got going on. So if you got anything going on to tell the viewers, now's the time to let them know.
I really don't have anything going on. I guess Deep End did send me some clothes. I'm wearing a hoodie here for them. I think it's Deep End Official on Instagram. So if you guys want to check them out, I'll throw them out there just because I'm being boring and stuck inside. I don't really have too much going on. Yeah, check them out. They're doing some cool stuff.
Awesome. Kyle, once again, thank you so much for joining me. And to all my viewers, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching another episode of the H Panel. I really appreciate you guys. For more episodes of the H Panel, click this button right here. And if you want to subscribe for more videos from myself, subscribe is right down below. Thanks, guys.